Let us begin by relaxing, really relaxing, not relaxing the body merely, not trying to calm the nerves, but relaxing the need to understand, the need to grasp, the need to do something with what is about to be said. Because if you should understand every word of this intellectually, it would not help you. And if you should misunderstand every word of it intellectually, it would not hurt you. What is important here is not comprehension, but receptivity. Be still and know that I am God. Not think, not analyze, not judge, be still. Now, I want to say at the outset that we are not here to talk about anxiety as a condition, nor as a problem, nor as something that belongs to you personally. Anxiety is not you. Anxiety is not your mind. Anxiety is not even something you have. Anxiety is a movement of thought, a state of mental activity that arises where there is effort, strain, resistance, and so we are not going to attempt to overcome anxiety, nor to heal it, nor to get rid of it. The very desire to get rid of it is often the thing that perpetuates it. He that seeketh his life shall lose it, but he that loseth his life for my sake shall find it. So let us lay aside for this moment the whole human habit of self-improvement. Let us lay aside the belief that something is wrong, that must be corrected. Let us lay aside the fear that if we do not do something, nothing will happen. Because the truth is, something is already happening. Before you call, I will answer. And while you are yet speaking, I will hear. The presence of God is not waiting upon your effort. The grace of God is not dependent upon your understanding. The activity of spirit is not delayed because you have been anxious. I am not concerned at this moment with whether you are anxious about your health, your supply, your relationships, or the state of the world. Those are all forms, and forms are never the cause. Judge not according to the appearance, but judge righteous judgment. We are going to look not at appearances, but at the inner posture of consciousness from which all appearances flow. And I say again, do not strain to follow this. Let it come to you as a quiet rain, not as a mental effort. You see, anxiety does not come because life is dangerous. Anxiety comes because the human mind has assumed a responsibility it was never meant to bear. Take no thought for your life, what ye shall eat, or what ye shall drink, nor yet for your body, what ye shall put on. That was not poetry, that was instruction. The mind that believes it must manage life, secure life, protect life, and plan life is a mind that will inevitably experience anxiety. Not because it is sinful, not because it is weak, but because it is attempting the impossible. Now let us be very clear about this. Nothing that will be said here is intended to make you a better human being. Nothing that will be said here is intended to give you a new mental tool. The infinite way is not a way of improving the mind. It is a way of letting the mind become quiet enough to be governed by something greater than itself, not by might, nor by power, but by my spirit, saith the Lord of hosts. So I ask you now, not audibly, not outwardly, but inwardly, to give up, just for this moment, the effort to get something out of this. Do not look for relief. Do not look for insight. Do not look for peace. Peace is not an object to be attained. It is the natural state of being when resistance ends. My peace I give unto you, not as the world giveth, give I unto you. The peace of God does not come by addition. It comes by subtraction, by the removal of strain, of effort, of self-direction. And if anxiety should be present right now, let it be present. Do not try to push it away. Do not name it. Do not analyze it. Simply notice that it is there, and then notice something else, that there is an awareness that is aware of it. That awareness is not anxious. That awareness is not afraid. That awareness is not struggling. The Lord is in his holy temple. Let all the earth keep silence before him. We are not beginning with a technique. We are beginning with an atmosphere of rest, an atmosphere in which truth can be heard, not shouted, an atmosphere in which the still small voice is not drowned out by the urgency of the human mind. And so, if nothing else is received from this moment, let this be received. You are not required to fix yourself in order to be held by God. Cast your burden upon the Lord, and he shall sustain you. Not because you deserve it, not because you are calm, but because it is his nature to sustain. Now remain here, just here for a moment, not going anywhere, not trying to become anything. Simply allowing this truth to settle. I will never leave thee nor forsake thee. And where that is realized, even faintly, anxiety has already begun to lose its grip, not by force, but by the gentle authority of presence. Now let us go a little deeper, still without strain, still without effort. And let us remove another burden that has been laid upon the human heart, the burden of believing that anxiety is a personal defect, a moral weakness, or a spiritual failure. Nothing could be further from the truth. Anxiety is not a sin. Anxiety is not evidence that you are unspiritual. Anxiety is not proof that you have failed to trust God. Anxiety is simply the sign that the mind is trying to do work that belongs to God. Which of you, by taking thought, can add 1 cubit unto his stature? We have been trained, almost from childhood, to believe that if something goes wrong in our experience, it must be because we have not thought rightly, prayed hard enough, or trusted sufficiently. And so, when anxiety appears, we turn upon ourselves. We condemn ourselves. We say, if only I had more faith, if only I were more spiritual, if only I could stop these thoughts. But condemnation never produces freedom. There is therefore now no condemnation to them which are in Christ Jesus. Condemnation only tightens the grip of the very thing we wish to escape. You see, anxiety is not caused by circumstances. If that were so, everyone facing the same circumstances would experience the same anxiety. Anxiety is not caused by the body. If that were so, no one could ever be free of it. Anxiety is caused by effort, mental effort, emotional effort, the effort to hold life together through personal responsibility. And wherever there is effort, there is tension. And wherever there is tension, there is fear. And wherever there is fear, anxiety appears. Not as an enemy, but as a signal. Let us understand this clearly. Anxiety is not attacking you. Anxiety is reporting something. It is reporting that the mind is attempting to govern life instead of yielding to life. I can of mine own self do nothing. That was not a confession of weakness. That was a declaration of spiritual law. The moment the mind assumes it must do something to secure safety, supply, health, or peace, it steps outside its proper function. And anxiety follows not to punish, but to warn. Now notice this carefully and let it sink in. Anxiety does not come because you care too little. It comes because you care too much in the wrong way. It comes because you have accepted a burden you were never meant to carry. My yoke is easy and my burden is light. If your burden is heavy, if your yoke is hard, something foreign has been added. God never burdens his creation with self-management. The human mind was never designed to be a creator, a protector, or a sustainer. It was designed to be an instrument, an avenue through which intelligence, harmony, and order flow. But when the instrument tries to become the source, confusion results. Anxiety is the confusion of the instrument trying to replace the source. And again, this is not a personal flaw. This is a universal belief, a universal hypnosis under which humanity lives. All we like sheep have gone astray. We have turned every one to his own way. So we are not here to correct a personal mistake. We are here to awaken from a universal assumption, the assumption that life depends upon our vigilance, our planning, our foresight, our mental control. Anxiety is simply the exhaustion that follows that assumption. And when this is understood, even faintly, self-blame begins to dissolve. And where self-blame dissolves, relaxation begins. And where relaxation begins, the door opens for something else to take over. Let us be very gentle with ourselves here. If anxiety is present, let it be present without judgment. Do not say, I should not feel this way. That statement only adds another layer of effort. Instead, recognize quietly, this is effort showing itself. And then remember, effort is not required where God is acknowledged. In all thy ways acknowledge him, and he shall direct thy paths. Not manage them, direct them. Now we are not yet releasing effort. We are only seeing it. And seeing is the first movement of freedom. You cannot let go of something you are still condemning, but you can let go of something you understand. Anxiety, when understood, begins to lose its authority, not because it is resisted, but because it is no longer believed to be personal. And so, if anxiety has been your companion, do not treat it as an enemy. Treat it as a messenger, pointing you back to a simple truth. Except the Lord keep the city, the watchman waketh, but in vain. The watchman may be sincere, devoted, and tireless, but his watching does not keep the city safe. Only the Lord does that. And when the watchman learns this, he rests. Remain with this for a moment. Let the burden of self-responsibility lighten. Let the idea slip in quietly. I was never meant to carry life alone. And where that is even partially realized, anxiety has already begun to fulfill its purpose and to depart. Now we come to what may be called the central mistake of the human experience, the belief that peace can be achieved through control. Not merely control of circumstances, but control of thoughts, control of feelings, control of outcomes, and even control of God. This belief is so subtle, so deeply woven into human consciousness, that it often disguises itself as responsibility, prudence, wisdom, or even spirituality. Yet it is this very belief that keeps anxiety alive. Lean not unto thine own understanding. The human mind says, if I can just think correctly, plan carefully, pray hard enough, or remain vigilant enough, then I will have peace. But peace does not come by vigilance. Peace does not come by guarding the future. Peace does not come by mastering the mind. Peace comes when the struggle to manage life ends. Thou wilt keep him in perfect peace, whose mind is stayed on thee, stayed, not strained, not disciplined, not forced, but rested. Now, observe this carefully without condemning yourself. The moment you attempt to control life, you have already admitted fear. Control is always the child of fear. No one tries to control that which they trust. No one tries to manage that which they know is governed by a higher law. And so, when anxiety appears, it is not because you are weak. It is because you are attempting to secure what has already been secured by God. The Lord shall fight for you, and ye shall hold your peace. This is why even spiritual practices can become burdensome. A person may say, I must meditate correctly, or I will not have peace. I must hold the right state of consciousness, or something will go wrong. But that, too, is control only dressed in spiritual language. It is still the human mind trying to save itself, and the mind cannot save itself, no matter how refined it becomes. Flesh and blood cannot inherit the kingdom of God. You see, peace is not the result of right conditions. Peace is the recognition that conditions are not the cause. The attempt to control conditions, whether physical, emotional, financial, or even spiritual, keeps consciousness fixed on effects instead of resting in cause. And cause is not something you manipulate. Cause is something you acknowledge. The Lord, He is God. There is none else beside Him. Let us say this quietly and let it sink in. Peace is not created. Peace is revealed when control is relinquished. And control is relinquished not by force, but by understanding. When you see that the attempt to control life has never produced lasting peace, the effort begins to fall away of its own weight. Come unto me, all ye that labor and are heavy laden, and I will give you rest. Notice that rest is given, not achieved. Now, the mind may protest and say, but if I do not control things, everything will fall apart. That is the great fear underlying all anxiety. But that fear rests on a false premise that life is being held together by you. The truth is exactly the opposite. Life is being held together in spite of you. In Him we live and move and have our being. If that were not so, no amount of control could save us. So we are not being asked to become careless or irresponsible. We are being asked to recognize the limits of the human mind and to yield governance to the divine. The human mind has a function to receive, to interpret, to cooperate. It was never meant to originate peace. When it tries to do so, it exhausts itself. Anxiety is the exhaustion of the mind that has taken on divine responsibility. And here is the great release. You do not have to stop controlling life. You only have to see that control has never worked. The moment that is seen, not argued, not debated, but seen, the struggle begins to dissolve. And where the struggle dissolves, peace begins to show itself, not as an emotion, but as an underlying assurance. My peace I leave with you. Remain with this recognition for a moment. Do not rush to apply it. Do not try to practice it. Simply notice how often the mind reaches out to grasp, to fix, to secure, and then gently let the truth arise. The government shall be upon His shoulder, not yours, never yours. And where that government is acknowledged, anxiety has no foundation upon which to stand. Now we come to a point that may unsettle the human mind, and yet, if it is received quietly, it will bring great release. Many sincere seekers have turned to positive thinking, affirmations, mental discipline, visualization, and various techniques in the hope of overcoming fear and anxiety. And for a time, these things may appear to help. There may be moments of relief, moments of uplift, moments when the pressure seems to lift, but sooner or later, often when one least expects it, the anxiety returns. And when it does, it often returns with greater force, because now it is accompanied by discouragement and self-judgment. Let us understand why this happens without criticism and without condemnation. Positive thinking fails, not because it is wrong, but because it is insufficient. It fails because it still assumes that the human mind is the power. It fails because it attempts to correct one thought with another thought. And thoughts, no matter how noble, no matter how uplifting, are still thoughts. That which is born of the flesh is flesh, and that which is born of the spirit is spirit. When you attempt to replace a fearful thought with a positive one, you remain engaged in the same arena, the arena of mental activity. You are still working within the belief that peace depends upon what the mind is doing. And so, while the surface of consciousness may change, the underlying effort remains. Anxiety may be quieted temporarily, but its root has not been touched. The root is the belief that the mind must produce peace. Now, let me say this very clearly. There is no condemnation here. Many of us have walked this path. Many of us have tried to think our way into harmony, to discipline our way into peace, to visualize our way into safety. But the infinite way reveals something deeper. Peace does not come from what the mind holds, but from what the mind yields to. Not by works of righteousness which we have done, but according to his mercy he saved us. The difficulty with techniques is not that they are harmful, but that they subtly reinforce the sense of a personal doer. They say, if I apply this correctly, I will get peace. And the moment peace depends upon correct application, it is already fragile. It can be lost, it can be threatened, it can fail, and anxiety returns, because the mind knows deep within that it cannot maintain this state indefinitely. You see, the human mind was never designed to sustain harmony. It was designed to receive harmony. When it tries to sustain it, it becomes tense. And tension is the breeding ground of anxiety. Behold, God is my salvation. I will trust and not be afraid. Notice that fearlessness follows trust. It does not precede it. Now, there is another subtle danger here, and it must be exposed gently. When techniques fail, the individual often blames themselves. I must not be doing it right. I must not be spiritual enough. I must not be disciplined enough. And so effort increases, strain increases, and anxiety deepens. This is not the way of spirit. My grace is sufficient for thee, for my strength is made perfect in weakness. The infinite way does not teach you how to think better thoughts. It reveals why thinking good or bad cannot be the source of peace. It reveals that peace is already established in the presence of God, and that the mind's only function is to become still enough to be aware of it. This is why all true prayer, all true meditation, all true spiritual healing begin with the cessation of mental effort. In returning and rest shall ye be saved. In quietness and in confidence shall be your strength. Let us not make the mistake of turning receptivity into another technique. Receptivity is not something you do. It is something that happens when doing ceases. You cannot practice it in the same way you practice affirmations or visualizations. You can only allow it by relinquishing the belief that you must produce something. And here is where anxiety begins to lose its footing, because anxiety feeds on effort, and effort feeds on belief in personal responsibility. So if you have tried many methods and still find anxiety appearing, do not be discouraged. That very discouragement may be the doorway to freedom. It may be the moment when the mind finally admits I cannot do this. And in that admission, quietly and without fanfare, grace enters. Except the Lord build the house, they labor in vain that build it. Remain with this understanding for a moment. Let go of the need for a new method, a better technique, a more powerful affirmation. Let the mind rest from its labor. And in that rest, something deeper than thought begins to stir. Not excitement, not emotion, but a quiet assurance that does not come from the mind at all. That assurance is the beginning of true prayer. Now we come to prayer not as the world understands prayer, not as religion has often taught prayer, but as prayer truly is when it is freed from human invention and restored to its spiritual meaning. Prayer, in the infinite way, is not an appeal to God. It is not a request made from fear. It is not a pleading for help, nor a bargaining for protection, nor an attempt to persuade deity to change conditions. Prayer is the yielding of human consciousness to divine consciousness. Prayer is receptivity. Speak, Lord, for thy servant heareth. Most anxiety is born in prayer that asks. Asking assumes lack. Asking assumes distance. Asking assumes that God is somewhere else and must be reached, influenced, or convinced. And so even prayer can become a strain, a labor, a desperate effort to secure safety. But the prayer that heals anxiety does not ask God to remove fear. It removes the belief that fear has power. The Lord is my shepherd. I shall not want. Not will, not want, shall not want. That is acknowledgement, not request. Let us see this clearly. The moment prayer becomes petition, the mind is still in charge. The mind is still deciding what is needed, when it is needed, and how it should appear. And anxiety persists because the mind has not yet relinquished its authority. True prayer begins when the mind admits that it does not know what is needed, nor how it should come. Your Father knoweth what things ye have need of before ye ask him. Prayer, then, is not something we do to God. It is something we allow God to do in us. It is the opening of consciousness to an already present presence. It is the quiet acknowledgement of an infinite intelligence governing the universe and therefore governing us. When prayer is understood in this way, it no longer excites the emotions or stimulates the mind. It calms, it stills, it rests. He maketh me to lie down in green pastures. Notice, he maketh, not I make myself. This is why prayer, rightly understood, dissolves anxiety at its root. Anxiety lives in the future. Prayer lives in the now. Anxiety says, what if? Prayer says nothing at all, and in that silence, something answers. Not in words, not in visions, not in dramatic signs, but in a deep inner assurance that cannot be reasoned away. Peace I leave with you, my peace I give unto you. Now, let us be careful not to turn receptivity into another form of effort. Receptivity is not something you try to achieve. The very trying closes the door. Receptivity is what remains when effort ceases. When you stop trying to pray, prayer begins. When you stop trying to trust, trust reveals itself. When you stop trying to surrender, surrender has already taken place. In quietness and confidence shall be your strength. In true prayer, there is no direction given to God. There is no outlining of problems. There is no mental review of fears. These things only rehearse the very states we wish to transcend. Instead, Prayer begins with a simple acknowledgement, sometimes spoken inwardly, sometimes not even formed into words. God is. God is present. God is governing. God is the only power, and then the mind rests in that acknowledgement until it becomes awareness. As this awareness deepens, the mind naturally becomes still, not because it has been forced into silence, but because it has nothing left to say. The questions dissolve, the urgency fades, and in that stillness, the activity of spirit is felt not as excitement, but as stability, not as relief alone, but as certainty. Underneath are the everlasting arms. This is the prayer that heals anxiety, not by addressing anxiety, but by removing the false sense of separation from God in which anxiety thrives. When prayer is receptivity, the burden of life is no longer carried personally. The sense of being alone dissolves. And even if outward conditions have not yet changed, inwardly, something fundamental has shifted. The weight is gone. The strain is gone. The need to manage is gone. Remain with this truth quietly. Let prayer be what it is, not something you do, but something you enter, not something you initiate, but something you receive. And where prayer is receptivity, anxiety finds no foothold, for there is no longer a self standing apart from God, struggling to hold life together. Now we must touch a point that is often overlooked, even by sincere students of truth. The difference between turning to God and letting God be. At first glance, the difference may seem slight, almost negligible. Yet in experience, it marks the dividing line between strain and rest, between anxiety and peace. For many turn to God and remain anxious, while few let God be and find themselves at rest. Stand still and see the salvation of the Lord. Turning to God often implies movement. It implies that we are here and God is there. It implies that something must be done, a direction must be taken, an effort must be made. And so the mind says, I will turn to God now. I will pray harder. I will concentrate more deeply. But notice there is still a doer. There is still a sense of distance. There is still effort. And where there is effort, anxiety can quietly persist. Letting God be is something else entirely. Letting God be is the recognition that God is already present, already active, already governing. It is the cessation of movement toward God. It is the end of the search. Lo, I am with you alway, even unto the end of the world. If God is with us always, then there is nowhere to go, nothing to reach, nothing to attain. There is only something to recognize. You see, anxiety often remains because even our prayers are based on the assumption of absence. We pray as though God must come. We pray as though harmony must be sent. We pray as though peace must be delivered from afar. And all the while, peace is present, waiting to be acknowledged. The kingdom of God is within you, not coming to you, not approaching you, within you. Let us be very gentle here, because this is subtle. Turning to God can still be an act of will. Letting God be is an act of surrender, not dramatic surrender, not emotional surrender, but the quiet surrender of the belief that we are separate from God. In the moment that belief loosens, anxiety begins to lose its authority. For anxiety feeds on separation. It cannot survive where oneness is even faintly realized. Now, let us consider this. When you are anxious, what are you really saying? You are saying, I am alone with this. You are saying, it is up to me. You are saying, I must manage this situation, this feeling, this future. But the moment you let God be truly be, you are no longer alone. Fear thou not, for I am with thee. Be not dismayed, for I am thy God. That is not poetry. That is a statement of fact. Letting God be does not mean passivity. It does not mean indifference. It does not mean neglect of human duties. It means that the inner burden of responsibility has been lifted. Actions may still be taken, words may still be spoken, decisions may still be made, but they are no longer born of fear. They arise from guidance, not from anxiety. He leadeth me in the paths of righteousness for his name's sake. Now observe how this applies to prayer. When you turn to God, you are still talking. When you let God be, you are listening. When you turn to God, you are still outlining the problem. When you let God be, the problem quietly fades from importance, not because it is ignored, but because it is seen in the light of a greater reality. The Lord is my light and my salvation. Whom shall I fear? Let us remain here for a moment. Do not ask God to be present. Do not invite God to enter your experience. Simply acknowledge quietly, inwardly, that God is where you are. God is what you are seeking. God is the very consciousness by which you are aware. And in that acknowledgement, something happens. The tension eases. The urgency subsides. The mind rests. This is why anxiety cannot be healed by effort. Anxiety dissolves in the presence of reality, and reality is not produced by turning, it is revealed by stillness. Be still and know. Know, not imagine, not hope, not affirm, but know. As you let God be, notice that you do not lose control, you lose the need for control. You do not lose direction, you lose confusion. You do not lose safety, you lose fear. And where fear is absent, anxiety has nothing to support it. It simply fades. Not dramatically, not suddenly, but naturally, as darkness fades before light. Remain with this recognition. Let God be God. Let yourself be the witness. And in that holy simplicity, peace begins to assert itself, not as an experience you grasp, but as the ground upon which you stand. Now let us look still more deeply, and let us do so without fear, because what we are about to see is not meant to burden us, but to free us. Anxiety is not something added to your life. It is something that arises when there is resistance to what already is. And what already is the presence of God. Whither shall I go from thy spirit? Or whither shall I flee from thy presence? There is no absence of God, only moments of unawareness. Anxiety is not caused by the presence of God. It is caused by resisting that presence. And resistance does not mean rebellion or wrongdoing. Resistance often takes the form of effort, trying to hold things together, trying to anticipate outcomes, trying to prepare for every possibility. The human mind, in its sincerity, says, I must be ready. I must stay alert. I must not let anything slip. But this constant vigilance closes the door to grace. They that wait upon the Lord shall renew their strength. Waiting, not watching anxiously, not guarding fearfully, but waiting in trust. When the mind resists the present, it always moves into the future. Anxiety cannot live in the now. Anxiety lives in what might happen, what could happen, what once happened and might happen again. But the presence of God is never in the future. It is never in the past. It is always now. Now are we the sons of God. Not tomorrow, not when conditions improve. Now. Now, here is something important to understand. Resistance is not always conscious. Often it is subtle, almost invisible. It can appear as concern, as responsibility, as love, even as prayer. A parent may worry because they care. A worker may worry because they are conscientious. A seeker may worry because they want to be faithful. But worry in any form is resistance to the flow of divine order. Cast thy burden upon the Lord, and he shall sustain thee. Burdens are not meant to be carried. They are meant to be cast. Anxiety, then, is not an enemy to be fought. It is a signpost. It points to the place where we are saying, I must manage this, instead of God is managing this. And again, this is not a moral failure. It is a habit of thought, learned and reinforced by the world. Be not conformed to this world, but be ye transformed by the renewing of your mind. Renewing, not replacing thoughts, but releasing beliefs. Let us pause here and feel into this truth. Nothing is required of you in this moment except to stop resisting. Not to fix, not to improve, not to surrender dramatically, just to stop pushing against what already is. The presence of God does not need your cooperation to exist. It only needs your non-resistance to be felt. He that dwelleth in the secret place of the Most High shall abide under the shadow of the Almighty. Dwelling, not striving, not seeking. Now notice what happens when resistance eases, even slightly. The breath deepens, the body softens, the mind becomes less urgent. This is not because a problem has been solved, but because a false burden has been dropped. Anxiety begins to dissolve not because conditions have changed, but because consciousness has shifted, and consciousness is always the cause. As a man thinketh in his heart, so is he. Not as his circumstances, but as he is conscious. You do not overcome anxiety by removing resistance. Resistance falls away when truth is recognized. When it is seen that God is already present, already active, already sufficient, the mind naturally relaxes. And in that relaxation, anxiety has no place to stand. It cannot argue. It cannot insist. It simply fades, as a mistaken assumption fades when light is brought to it. Remain with this awareness quietly. Do not ask for anxiety to leave. Do not demand peace. Simply acknowledge again and again, gently, without effort, God is here. God is now. God is the life of this moment. And where that is realized, even faintly, resistance loosens its grip and anxiety begins to dissolve, not as an event, but as a natural consequence of truth realized. In this journey of spiritual awakening, we often come to a moment where we seek peace, stillness, silence, and yet many times we search in the wrong place for the wrong thing. We seek an absence of sound, an absence of motion, an absence of activity. But I say to you that peace is not an absence, it is a presence. Stillness is not the silence of the mind, but the availability of the soul. Think of stillness not as something to acquire or achieve, but as something to realize. In the same way that the wind does not ask for permission to blow, peace does not need your permission to be present. It simply is. Stillness, true stillness, comes not when you close the doors of the mind, but when you open the doors of your heart to the awareness of what already is. Be still and know that I am God. Be still, not as a task to perform, not as a technique to perfect, but as a realization that all that is required is your awareness of God's presence. Many have sought silence through meditation, through prayer, through retreat, and these practices are good. They have their place, but let us remember that silence in and of itself is not the end. The end is God revealed, God experienced. And God cannot be experienced in silence alone. No, God is experienced in the stillness of the soul's availability to God. It is not the absence of thought that brings peace, but the presence of God in the midst of thought. Stillness is the recognition that God, who is not far off, is already nearer than our own breath. The Lord is near unto all them that call upon him, to all that call upon him in truth. Think of this stillness as a sacred availability, as the willing acknowledgement that God is in this moment, that his presence is within reach. You see, when you stop searching for peace outside of yourself, you stop resisting the peace that is already here. And in that release, stillness enters your being not as a controlled effort, but as a natural outcome of your heart's openness. And why does this stillness matter? Because it is in the stillness that you are best able to receive the guidance of the Spirit. It is in the stillness that you hear the gentle whisper of God's wisdom, a wisdom that does not shout, but speaks in the quietest of voices, a voice that only the receptive ear can hear. In quietness and confidence shall be your strength. Strength is not the power to act in the world. It is the strength to be present with God. The world tells you to act, to hustle, to do, to achieve. But I say to you, the divine nature within you knows no hurry. There is nothing that can be added to God's kingdom. There is only the gift of awareness, the awareness that God is, and that you, in your true being, are one with him. In stillness, you let go of the need to control, the need to direct, the need to force things into existence. You let go of the belief that you must make things happen. Instead, you are open to what is happening through you, in you, and as you. And as you do, peace becomes your natural state, not because the world is at peace, but because the kingdom of heaven is within you and it is always at peace. True stillness, then, is not just about silence. It is about surrendering the need to control, to plan, to direct. It is about becoming an instrument, a vessel, available to the flow of divine wisdom and peace. In stillness, you become aware of your oneness with God's will. And in that awareness, you become a willing participant in the expression of his grace. It is not that you do nothing. It is that you are available for the divine to work through you without interference from the personal mind or ego. Consider this. The stillness that we seek is not for our own comfort, nor is it to escape the world, but rather to become more present in the world, to become more attuned to the voice of God guiding us through each moment. And this stillness is not something we must create or manufacture. No, stillness is the natural state of a soul that has stopped resisting. The Lord will fight for you, and ye shall hold your peace. There is a battle within you between the noise of the world and the quiet of the Spirit, but the victory is won when you allow God to fight the battle through you, and you simply rest in his peace. Therefore, Do not think that you must silence every thought or every feeling before you can be at peace. Instead, learn to be present with your thoughts and feelings, not as a judge, not as a controller, but as one who is quietly aware of them. When you are aware, you are free from them. The thoughts no longer control you because you no longer identify with them. You are the stillness behind the thoughts, the witness to the thoughts. And as the witness, you remain untouched, unburdened, at peace. And so, in this stillness, we are not simply waiting for something to happen. We are not hoping for a moment of quiet to escape into. No, we are becoming available to the now, to the presence of God that is right here, right now. In that availability, you will find peace. You will find clarity. You will find that you are not separate from the world, but deeply connected to it through the presence of God. In that stillness, you are one with the flow of divine grace, moving through you, guiding you, supporting you in every moment. I want you to pause for a moment, my beloved, and reflect upon this simple yet profound truth. You do not control life. Yes, you have been taught that you must control, that you must manage your circumstances, that you must take charge of every detail in your life. But I say to you now, there is no life in control. Control is a mask, a false sense of security that the mind holds on to. You believe you must control your circumstances, control your body, control your emotions. But the truth is, you have no control over anything, not truly. And it is in the relinquishing of control that you enter into the fullness of divine order. It is the illusion of control that causes suffering. When we believe we must shape everything with our own hands, we forget that it is the hand of God that shapes the universe. The Lord is my shepherd, I shall not want. The Lord is the shepherd of all. It is he who guides you, and you, in your true being, are not the shepherd of yourself, but the willing sheep of God's grace. The more you try to control, the more you separate yourself from the flow of divine grace. The more you try to force your will upon the world, the more you find yourself at odds with the natural rhythm of existence. In truth, there is no my will, there is only God's will, and it is perfect in its unfolding. But, you ask, what of my desires, my dreams, my plans? Are these not meant to be realized? Yes, my beloved, they are meant to be realized, but not in the way you think. Your desires are not separate from God's desires for you. They are not separate from divine wisdom. When you let go of the illusion of control, you allow the divine wisdom within you to reveal the perfect way. Seek ye first the kingdom of God and his righteousness, and all these things shall be added unto you. The more you try to force your desires into existence by your own effort, the more you entangle yourself in the material world. The more you allow yourself to be led by the quiet guidance of God, the more you will find that your desires are fulfilled naturally, effortlessly, in divine order. There is no greater freedom than the freedom to let go of control, let go of your need to direct your life, let go of the belief that you must make things happen. For in truth, nothing is truly made by your hands. All that is made by God. In him we live and move and have our being. You are not separate from him. You are not apart from his will. The more you attempt to control, the more you push against the stream of God's love. But when you stop fighting, when you surrender the illusion of control, you begin to flow with the divine. You begin to recognize that all things are moving toward your good. toward your highest good, under the direction of God's infinite wisdom. Consider the birds of the air. Do they worry over their flight? Do they struggle to find the right currents? No. They trust the wind beneath their wings, and they are carried effortlessly across the sky. How much more so should you trust the breath of God that sustains you? You are not meant to fight against the current of life. You are meant to let it carry you. God's will is always for your highest good, and in allowing yourself to be carried by His will, you will find that life flows with ease. The steps of a good man are ordered by the Lord, and He delighteth in His way. This is the secret of divine order: to trust, to surrender, to know that you are not separate from God's plan. When you try to control, you are acting from a place of fear that life will not provide, fear that you will not be taken care of. But when you let go, you act from a place of faith. You act in the knowledge that the Creator of the universe, the one who made the stars and the heavens, is also the one who governs your life. You are not alone in your journey. You are not responsible for orchestrating your destiny. You are called to be in alignment with divine order, to surrender yourself into the hands of the Almighty. Do you see, beloved? The more you let go, the more you become who you truly are. The more you allow the divine to flow through you, the more you become an instrument of His peace, His grace, His wisdom. You do not need to manipulate life to get what you want. What you need is to align yourself with God's will, to let go of your fear and your need for control. In doing so, you will find that what you desire is already on its way to you, that it is already prepared for you, that it is already yours. This is the paradox of divine order. In surrendering to it, you gain everything. In trusting God's will, you find your true path. In letting go of control, you become one with the flow of life. And this is peace. This is fulfillment. This is the abundant life that you are meant to live. Now, beloved, I call you to look at a deeply transformative practice, a practice that can change the course of your life. I speak of the power of acceptance. Acceptance. How often do you hear that word, and yet how little do we truly understand it? We resist what is. We fight against the flow of life. We complain, we blame, we seek to change that which is before us, forgetting that there is a deeper power in simply accepting things as they are. We are taught that change is the path to success, that we must constantly strive to improve, to become more, to reach higher. But what if, in that striving, we are missing the very essence of life? Be still and know that I am God. The stillness, the quiet surrender to what is this, is where the power lies. Acceptance is not a passive resignation. It is a powerful acknowledgement of God's presence in every moment. It is the recognition that everything you experience is part of the divine order, unfolding perfectly according to the will of God. To accept does not mean to settle for less. It means to recognize that everything you encounter has a purpose, that even the struggles you face are opportunities for divine revelation. And we know that all things work together for good to them that love God, to them who are the called according to His purpose. The moment you accept what is before you, you allow the divine wisdom to work in your life. You cease fighting against the tide, and instead, you ride the waves in harmony with the Creator. Acceptance does not mean you approve of everything that happens. No. But it means you trust the process. It means you trust that every challenge is an invitation to awaken to a higher state of being. My grace is sufficient for thee, For my strength is made perfect in weakness. It is in our moments of weakness that we find God's strength. It is in our moments of challenge that we discover our true power. There is great freedom and acceptance, beloved. When we resist, we bind ourselves to the illusion of control, and we suffer. But when we accept, we are free to move beyond the limitations of the mind. We are free to embrace the present moment as it is, without judgment, without fear, without resistance. The more you accept what is, the more you open yourself to the divine flow of life, the more you align yourself with God's perfect will. The challenge, then, is to accept your circumstances not as they appear on the surface, but as they are in their deeper spiritual significance. It is easy to accept when everything is going according to plan, but it is in the moments of challenge that true acceptance is tested. When faced with hardship, when faced with loss, when faced with uncertainty, can you still trust in God's divine plan? Can you accept that what is happening is part of your spiritual journey, that it is unfolding for your highest good, even if you cannot yet see the full picture? Trust in the Lord with all thine heart, and lean not unto thine own understanding. In all thy ways acknowledge him, and he shall direct thy paths. When you accept, you are acknowledging that God's wisdom is greater than your own, that his understanding far exceeds anything your mind can grasp. You are opening the door for divine direction to lead you to where you are meant to be. There is power in acceptance, beloved, because it opens you up to the infinite possibilities of God. When you stop resisting, when you stop struggling against the flow of life, you make room for God to work in your life in ways that you could never imagine. You allow his love, his wisdom, his peace to fill every corner of your being, and in doing so, you align yourself with the divine purpose that has always been in motion for you. Remember this: I can do all things through Christ, which strengtheneth me. There is no obstacle that can stand before you when you embrace the power of acceptance. There is no situation that can defeat you when you know that God is at the center of it all. The path is not always easy, and the journey is not always smooth, but in accepting what is, you release yourself from the burden of struggle, and you surrender to the peace that passes all understanding. As we come to the close of this time together, my beloved, let me leave you with this. Your life is not your own. It is not for you to control, to manipulate, to force into shape. Your life is a divine expression, unfolding perfectly according to God's will. And as you surrender to that will, as you release your need for control, as you accept what is, you will find that life flows with ease, that it unfolds in beauty, that it moves with a purpose far greater than your own. You are not separate from God's will, you are one with it. And when you live in this awareness, when you trust in divine order, when you surrender to God's grace, you will find that all things are added unto you. You will find that your desires are fulfilled, that your path is made clear, that your life becomes a living expression of the divine. So, my beloved, let go of your need to control. Surrender to divine order. Accept what is, and trust in the flow of life, knowing that the hand of God is guiding you every step of the way. May you walk in peace, in grace, and in the fullness of God's love. The Lord will perfect that which concerneth me, and so it is. Amen.